Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, spent much of his career exploring the deep layers of the human psyche. His work on archetypes, dreams, symbols, and the process of individuation transformed how we understand not only our inner world, but also our relationships with others. Among his most profound ideas is the concept of the anima, the unconscious feminine aspect of the male psyche. Jung believed that the way a man relates to women reflects how he relates to his own inner feminine. When he becomes too rational, too disillusioned, or too spiritually distanced from the feminine, he risks falling into what could be described as a curse, the curse of seeing through women. To see through women, in this context, does not mean perceiving their character or humanity clearly. Rather, it refers to a spiritual or psychological condition where a man becomes detached from the feminine. Viewing women as illusions, manipulators, or archetypal traps rather than whole human beings. Such a man believes he has figured women out and thus disengages from them emotionally and energetically. While this may appear to be wisdom or strength, Jung warns that this condition represents a dangerous psychological imbalance. It is a subtle form of repression that distorts a man's inner world and disconnects him from vital aspects of his own soul. This essay explores Jung's warning through his writings on the anima, projection, shadow, and individuation. We will trace the psychological, relational, and spiritual consequences of seeing through women, examining both its historical and modern forms. Ultimately, this condition reveals more about the man's wounded psyche than the women he sees through, and the remedy lies not in escaping the feminine, but in integrating it within. 1. Carl Jung and the anima. Carl Jung introduced the idea of the anima as the feminine soul image within a man. Just as the animus is the masculine within a woman, the anima represents the inner other, the unconscious complement to the conscious personality. It often emerges in dreams, fantasies, and projections, particularly during a man's interactions with women. Jung observed that the anima evolves through 4 stages: Eve, the primal, sensual woman; Helen, the romantic and aesthetic figure; Mary, the virtuous and spiritual woman; and Sophia, the wise, transcendent guide. The integration of the anima is essential to individuation, the process of becoming psychologically whole. For Jung, failure to relate consciously to the anima results in projection. The man projects unconscious feminine traits onto women, seeing in them not who they truly are, but parts of himself that he cannot yet recognize. This makes his relationships unstable, filled with illusion and disappointment. When the anima is disowned, she becomes dangerous, not because women are dangerous, but because a man becomes vulnerable to his own unintegrated psyche. The anima is not just a symbol of romantic interest, she is a bridge to the unconscious. She inspires creativity, sensitivity, empathy, and inner depth. She connects the ego with the self, the deeper, integrated center of being. To deny or repress her is to deny a vital part of the psyche, and the consequences of such denial are profound. 2. The feminine archetype in Jungian theory. In Jungian thought, archetypes are inherited patterns of human experience, universal symbols that appear across cultures and time. The feminine archetype is rich and multidimensional, containing both light and dark aspects. Jung identified common motifs such as the nurturing mother, the virginal maiden, the seductive lover, the witch, and the wise old woman. These figures live not only in mythology and stories, but also in the deep psyche of every person. When a man relates to women, he often encounters these archetypes in projection. For instance, he may idolize a woman as the perfect mother or demonize her as a seductress. These perceptions are rarely about the actual woman in front of him, rather, they are expressions of his inner feminine landscape. If he has a wounded relationship with his inner mother archetype, he may seek healing through romantic partners or reject emotional intimacy altogether. The danger arises when a man mistakes these archetypes for reality, when he is either caught in romantic illusion or becomes disenchanted and cold. Both extremes indicate a failure to relate to the feminine consciously. To see through a woman as just an archetype, a manipulator, or a tool for his projection is to avoid real intimacy and growth. In Jungian terms, he has not individuated, he has merely escaped. 3. What it means to see through women. The phrase seeing through women can sound like a form of insight, as if the man has transcended illusion and now understands feminine nature. But in Jungian psychology, this often indicates a dissociation from the anima. The man is no longer enchanted by the feminine, but he is not truly free, he is disillusioned, cynical, and often emotionally numb. He may view women as deceptive, superficial, or emotionally manipulative, and pride himself on his detachment. But this pride is a defense against vulnerability. To see through women in this way is not to perceive more, but to perceive less, to strip the feminine of her mystery, complexity, and humanity. The man reduces women to psychological patterns, evolutionary strategies, or archetypal traps. He becomes incapable of real connection because he believes he already knows what lies behind every woman's smile or word. In truth, he has become afraid of the feminine, and his insight is a mask for that fear. Jung warned that this condition results in spiritual sterility. The anima, once rejected, does not disappear, she becomes a dark force in the unconscious, haunting the man through depression, resentment, and disconnection. He may feel powerful in his rational clarity, but beneath the surface lies a profound loneliness. 4. The shadow of the disenchanted man. Jung's concept of the shadow refers to the parts of the self that are denied or repressed. For the man who sees through women, the shadow often contains powerful emotional forces, longing, pain, vulnerability, and desire. Because he cannot consciously engage with these feelings, they manifest in distorted ways through control, criticism, or withdrawal. Such a man may become emotionally manipulative, using knowledge of psychology or human behavior to keep others at a distance. He may swing between idealizing women and devaluing them, unable to find stable ground. In some cases, he turns toward pornography, casual sex, or isolation, trying to fulfill his anima through fantasy or avoid her altogether. Jung warned that disowning the anima can lead to psychic possession. The man is no longer in control of himself. His relationships become battlegrounds for unresolved inner conflicts. His creativity dries up. His emotional world becomes barren. He may become cynical, sarcastic, and cold, believing that love is weakness and detachment is power. But this is not strength, it is a man at war with his own soul. 5. Case examples from Jung's work. Throughout his career, Jung worked with men who struggled with anima projection. One patient, a successful intellectual, reported chronic dissatisfaction in relationships. He described every woman he met as disappointing or shallow. Under analysis, it became clear that he had projected his anima onto an idealized image of the feminine, expecting women to fulfill a spiritual role they could not carry. When they failed, he withdrew emotionally and retreated into books and abstract thought. Another man, a spiritual seeker, believed that women were distractions on the path to enlightenment. He claimed to see through their needs and emotional games, seeing them as tests or illusions. Jung interpreted this as a disconnection from the anima. Man had spiritualized his detachment, but it was rooted in fear. He had not transcended the feminine, he had avoided her. In both cases, healing began when the men acknowledged their projections and engaged with the anima internally. Through dream analysis, active imagination, and emotional work, they began to recognize the feminine within, and, as a result, were able to see women not as mirrors or threats, but as fellow human beings. 6. Modern manifestations. In today's culture, the curse of seeing through women has taken new forms. In online communities such as the Red Pill, MGTOW, men going their own way, or certain corners of the manosphere, men are encouraged to believe that women are fundamentally manipulative, hypergamous, and untrustworthy. They are taught to decode female behavior as if it were a psychological game, to remain stoic, detached, and in control. While some of these ideas contain partial truths about human nature, they often arise from unresolved anima projection. The woman is not seen as a person, but as a strategy to master or a threat to avoid. Emotional intimacy is treated with suspicion. Vulnerability is framed as weakness. Jung would recognize this trend as a collective shadow, a sign that many men are spiritually starving, having lost contact with the inner feminine. These attitudes may protect the ego, but they block the soul. What looks like strength is often fear in disguise. 7. Consequences of disconnection from the anima. The consequences of this disconnection are serious. Without the anima, a man becomes emotionally one-dimensional. He may be competent, productive, and logical, but inwardly, he is hollow. He struggles to form meaningful relationships, often repeating patterns of control, detachment, or projection. His dreams lose their vitality. His imagination becomes dull. Worse, he may feel chronically unfulfilled, sensing that something essential is missing. He may seek distractions through achievement, sex, substance use, or even spiritual bypassing, but none satisfy. His soul aches, but he cannot name the source of the pain. Jung believed that the anima, once rejected, becomes a siren, calling the man back to wholeness through suffering. Until he answers that call, he will remain incomplete, locked in a pattern of disconnection. 8. The path to integration. Healing begins when a man turns inward. Rather than projecting the anima outward, he must reclaim her within. This involves dream work, shadow work, and a willingness to engage with emotions he may have long suppressed. The anima may appear in dreams as a muse, a lover, a mother, or a goddess. symbols that guide him toward integration. Jung's method of active imagination allows the man to dialogue with these inner figures. He listens, feels, and explores rather than analyzes or conquers. Over time, the anima becomes not a projection but a presence, a source of inner wisdom, creativity, and connection. By embracing his vulnerability, the man becomes whole. He is no longer afraid of women or of himself. He can relate without illusion, love without control, and create without fear. 9. Jung's final warning to men. Jung warned that spiritual or intellectual men are especially prone to this curse. The more refined their minds, the more likely they are to repress the irrational, emotional, and relational aspects of life. They may rise high in thought, only to fall into despair, unable to feel. To see through women, in Jung's terms, is to fail to see oneself. It is a form of spiritual arrogance that leads not to freedom, but to fragmentation. The anima cannot be bypassed. She is the gatekeeper of the unconscious, the path to the self. For Jung, true masculinity includes the feminine. A strong man is not one who avoids the anima, but one who integrates her. Only then can he become whole, not just a thinker or doer, but a human being. Conclusion. The curse of seeing through women is not a triumph of clarity, but a symptom of disconnection. Carl Jung's warning remains vital today. When men cut themselves off from the feminine, within and without, they lose touch with their own souls. Women are not projections, illusions, or archetypes to decode. They are individuals, just as complex and mysterious as men. And the feminine, a symbol, force, and presence, is essential to every man's wholeness. The way forward is not through disillusionment, but through integration. By reclaiming the anima, men can reconnect with their emotional depth, creativity, and inner guidance. Only then can they love fully, live authentically, and walk the path toward individuation with wisdom and grace.